What's up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of the House of the Dev podcast. Please welcome Raphael Colantonio. Hi, Raph.
Hello.
I'm your co host, Peter Salnikov, and our guest today is a true living legend, game designer, programmer, and producer, one of the key people behind id Software and Iron Storm, co author of Wolfenstein 3D, Commander Key, and Anachronox, Deus Ex, and many other cult classic games, Tom Hall. Hi, Tom, and thank you very much for joining us.
Happy to be here.
You are entering the House of the
Dev. Now, Tom, you've been around for so many years, working for the game industry before it became an industry per se, and it seems like you've seen it all. And alongside Warren Spector, who also was on our podcast, you are probably among the oldest developers who still make games. What's your current gig? What are you working on right now? And most of all, what keeps you engaged in making games after all these years?
Well, first off, as everyone in the industry is familiar with, my current game is Redacted, or that's my company, and now we're working on unannounced title. So can't really talk about it right now, NDAs and all that, but it's cool, and we'll talk about it in the future.
The landscape of the industry has changed many times since the 90s and obviously even the 80s. But in each era, there were good and bad games, rich and poor companies, different platforms, distribution models, and all that. What do you think of the industry now as compared to what it was back in the day? And as a side question, I would like to ask, who were your heroes back then? Were you looking up to someone? And how about now? Do you have any, let's say, idols in the modern history of gaming?
Well, I will answer that and the previous question, which I somehow didn't complete. So early in the morning, I guess.
Yeah.
More caffeine. The thing is, like, when I was question one, when I was a kid, I was trying to find something to express myself. So I was making Super 8 films, and I toppled 2,500 dominoes and made all these like spiral mountains and elevators and all this stuff. And I was making marble mazes, and I was writing fiction and poetry, and I was just like, what, like if I get into this, then I'll have to get a publisher, and it's like really hard to, everyone's writing a novel, and so and like I could make, I was making super special effects films, but it's like, man, I might have to crew and like all this stuff. And then June 9th, 1980, my dad got the family an Apple II Plus. And it was June 9th, so I lived on that all summer, and I thought, oh, these are cool, all these little games, and then I typed in some basic game and I modified it a little bit, and then I made a text adventure, and then the text adventure was like about as good as the ones being published, and it's like, this is like a medium where I can like do all the things I wanted to do, write and sort of direct experience and stuff like that. But I can do it all in one medium, and I can do it all myself, at least back then. So that was it. I was just on it. And then since then, it's through id and all the other companies, we've always been kind of in the forefront of technology. And so there's always something new to learn. And that's basically, you have to keep learning in life, or you're just kind of a robot, So like, that's what's kept me excited, is like there's always a new platform, there's always a new challenge. Like I was just in a VR company for 3 years, like VR, new language that's there to be developed. So it's always like, that's an exciting thing, because like I have to, creatively solve problems and come up with experiences. And so this is the best way to do it. And I could retire, but then I would just keep making games when I get paid for it. So, there's that. And then as far as like heroes back then, well, I have heroes from different media, because I kind of like, you have to take in a bunch of creative media to output creative media. So like a lot of famous directors, like Spielberg and Scorsese and Lynch and stuff like that. Like that's a whole other topic. But game wise, my big influences sort of like Shigeru Miyamoto, and because I was growing up on the super old school, so it would be like like I was playing Sinistar, and it's weird. I was playing Sneakers on the Apple II, and it's weird, sort of like to work with your peers later. How's it going? I was speaking at a conference in Brno in the Czech Republic, Game Access, and I just got to hang out with Warren Robinette, who did the original adventure on the 2600, just for hours, and it was just fascinating. I was just asking him all the little technical, how'd you do this? How would you do the lifting gate thing? That was really slow, cool animation. And so so I think the person that I only like lost, I met him and I just like, I made an Anachronox and I tried to do the sawtooth up and down difficult. Just like I was just a goon. So that was that. And then for other media, Chuck Jones, really creative. And that's Shows and Keen. Just how he like used that medium, what's Opera Doc, and the color choices, and there's just fantastic stuff. I mean, there's just so many amazing games that trying to pick like a litany of of all the amazing games since then. Is probably my favorite game is Chrono Trigger, but there's so many.
And that was what led you to developing Anachronox.
Yeah, that's a direct like just playing that. I was hanging out with Romero,
Hmm.
and it says like, "What are you doing this weekend?" And I said, "Oh, well, I don't think I got anything going on." It says, "Okay, come over here and play this. This is going to be your favorite game," because he knows me really well. And then just like, yeah, whatever. And then I played it. And it's like, oh my gosh! And I was like, it sort of a sense of humor, but it's got sci-fi, it's a lot of character development. It's 13 endings. It's like, it's just, and I love the music, and it's yeah. So I could not help but like it.
Yeah. So just as a side note, Anachronox, I've played it for the first time a couple of years ago. Like for the past year, I was still playing it, and I knew about this game. I knew it had some critical acclaim back in the day because I was a passionate video game magazines reader, but I never played it until like 2 years ago. And God damn it, I got to say that this is going to be one of those games that I will remember for the rest of my life. I mean, while I was playing it, I kept talking to my colleagues and friends. I mean, gaming friends and friends from the devs, and I kept talking to my studio like, go play Anachronox. Story-wise, gameplay-wise, it will help your game, whatever your game is, because it still feels so fresh. And in terms of story, it feels so rare, especially these days, because stories just suck in modern games, mostly. And in Anachronox, I mean, it would be lies if I would say that this is a perfect game. It's not, but the story is so compelling. I cannot stop playing it. I want to find out what is next because every twist is so crazy and hilarious that I am constantly on a needle. It's magic, and it's just a thank you, Tom.
Thanks much. Yeah, I just part of coming up with a big arc of the story. What would surprise me? What would just blow me away? Like, what are some concepts that would just be crazy? I don't know if you want to spoil some of those concepts.
Yeah, I want to. After 25 years, yeah, I think I can afford that.
Yeah, okay. People, spoil Shakespeare plays. Like, dude, spoilers.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I thought, well, like, what would blow my sense of scale? Like what that would be something that would surprise me. So I thought, well, what if, I don't know, an entire planet could join your party?
Oh, yes. That's not a spoiler. I've got to that bit.
And then I was thinking, like, what are my expectations with interface? Like, I was wanted to select things in the environment, and there's going to be this cursor. Well, I have to, maybe I'll make it diegetic, and I'll justify it in being in the world. But then, like, that's boring, just like a little thing floating around. Like, what if it's a character? What if your cursor is actually a character and talks back to you, and, like, has a little attitude and is like kind of mad at you for some reason? And that thing. And then I thought, like, well, this is going to be a hard sci-fi story. What would be surprising in a hard sci-fi story? I thought, well, something totally unscientific or something like, I don't know, superhero. Just throw a superhero in there. And so that kind of like joy of like breaking rules and breaking expectations kind of, let all these things come together to be kind of this crazy universe that makes sense.
Yeah. When you find out that some other NPCs also own a life cursor, it's a device in the world of the game, and they have different persons living inside the life cursor, like in Black Mirror TV show, and
Yeah.
it's Cortana before Cortana. And
yeah, exactly. And
she was a real life woman, and she died, and now she lives as a AI in your cursor. It's nuts
because like the guy felt guilty about it, her death. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yeah, it was like I was kind of at the start of the thing. We were just like, what would be your dream game? It's like, well, I'd love to play an RPG, but like a sci-fi RPG where homage to Chrono, of course, but something that just really surprised me, was hard sci-fi, had just a giant story, and it also had to make sense of the name, because I thought so. When you're a creative person, you come up with ideas when you're either driving, about to go to sleep, or waking up, in the shower, or in the bathroom. So I was in the bathroom, and the word Anachronox came to me, and I was like, what is that? I was like, well, sort of like anachronism plus Nox. So it's like something out of its time and something sort of noxious or something. And I kind of munged that into poison from the past. So the big arc of the thing is like there's, some horrible evil entity from the past that's trying to destroy the future, essentially. But then that also came in the character sense, is each of the characters has a poison in their past that they're trying to heal from. So like Boots, feels guilty that Fatima was killed, in his shenanigans, and Stiletto has gone through some horrible stuff, and Alpunio's lost his, sense of faith in himself and that kind of stuff. And they're all healing from that over the arc of the game. So yeah, I like how those things kind of mirror, and in my games I usually kind of have like the character and then the real character, or the real character and what the character's past, or something like that. So Commander Keen is both Billy Blaze and Commander Keen, and in here we have, like the dual characters. Everybody has a difference in their past that they're looking back at.
Raphael, have you played Anachronox?
It's one of those games. There's always like this amazing movie or these amazing games that somehow I missed, and that's one of those. From a distance, it kind of looks like Deus Ex. It looks like it would totally be up my alley, but somehow I was, it did not happen on my computer.
It wasn't as advertised. I think there's a whole kind of Iron Storm thing where we kind of advertised too early and from weird pressure from something. So it was kind of like, here's this game we worked 4 years on, and it's like 5 ads or something like that. So
Iron Storm Dallas, I guess, right? Not Austin.
Yeah, Iron Storm Dallas, yeah, and so that was like a whole deal back then. But anyways, we really, like, the people that finished that game just made it out of just love, and we had to death crunch for like a year and 3 months to finish that thing. And it was a lot. I mean, like, I was recovering from that like 6 or 7 years later. It was just like, it's sort of just like, it took so much of your life and effort and everything, and just like kind of crushed you and took away all your hobbies. And there's like, you're just worn down to a nub. But every year at GDC, the Anachronox team still gets together because like we kind of went through a developer kind of a war story together, and so we kind of are a band of brothers, as it were.
Oh yeah.
Did you work in Austin at some point? Because we have a lot of friends in common. So I assume-
I got a team from a company I have to that was Midway, but I mean not really. The only thing I did was Walton Simons on Deus Ex. I did the voice of the bad guy. Have they been infected guy? But they said I did, and there you go. But yeah, I mean I was down there a bunch, but yeah, it's more of their deal.
So, what do you feel about the industry today? All those, starting from microtransactions to NFTs to AI.
I'm a fan of like trying out new stuff, right? And like even John Romero tried a NFT of one of his maps or something like that. There's things to try, but it's more like everybody's trying to jump on things as if they have substance. And I mean,
Yeah.
AI is actually useful, but it's just code, doing like smart stuff. So like we've been doing like light versions of that. It's just now it's grown into more advanced versions of that can sort of like somewhat think for you. I mean, I think I'm excited about it growing up from this kind of infancy phase where it looks like it's doing what you want it to do, but it can massively surprise you with a wrong answer. So like they're sort of an infancy phase in the next probably 5 years, like when 5, 6, 7 ChatGPTs are happening, then it'll be like, oh, okay, it's gotten past the kind of the silly, like, oh, okay, I can do some research for you, but check your facts just in case, I just made it up to look like research. So I mean, it's useful though. But I've checked it out to like generate the start of a name list. It doesn't come up with surprising content necessarily, but it can spur surprising content. So pretty soon, though, I think it just has to get over a crest of like understanding its understanding, kind of like that, and then having saving context and for a long time and so on. And I think it's going to be great, and I just don't like applications of it. Like I would like a program like we're on now, we're on Zoom or Google Meet or any of those, to just not ask me, are you trying to talk when I'm coughing? Like that's a use of AI I would love to have happen. I don't want it to necessarily make art that all my friends are making, like that. The creative jobs are the interesting, fun jobs, and I'd rather not, be all pushed into like menial work because the robots are so good at doing like art for us. But I mean, and it's also like trained on real art, so like they're just learning from the creative wealth of all the artists. So I think that needs to be shored up and at least have them get paid for like just like it should be like the Spotify of art. It's just like you're not getting tons of money, but you're getting money for like having created a look or some facet of this. I mean, just like a game, like you get paid for doing your little creative part of it. So that would make sense. As far as like Bitcoin and everything, yeah, that's cool, but it's just like it's so volatile and stuff like that, and NFTs are is sort of a receipt for a work rather than a work, and it's just that's not as interesting. Microtransactions are fine to me. It's just like, sure, eliminate the friction to my game, and yes, I have to design it a little bit differently, but I want you to be able to play. It just when it becomes this is a full paid game and you're paying microtransactions and there's whole it's done in a greedy fashion rather than a this helps us keep developing passion. Like I mean, microtransactions are fine. Like say you publish a game and you have a battle pass, and that lets us make a new set of content for you as a game team or something. That's fine. But it's just when you're doing dark patterns to like squeeze people for money that don't understand they're not actually playing the game, they're playing a game simulation. It's sort of like,
So the you've been in the game industry for a long time. I mean, I've been in it for 30 years, but probably maybe even more for you. I don't know, because you seem to have started
37. Yeah.
Do you think some of the things that like we can still, like how much is still true from there? It's in a way like if you would think the analogy with movies, for example, you don't know how much of Charlie Chaplin stuff still applies today, right? It's changed so much. It's almost like irrelevant at this point. And sometimes I wonder this as well, right? Because I've been around for 30 years. So it's like the things that I was doing 30 years ago, whether it's my relationship to the publishers, like how the industry, the ecosystem was working, the number of people to develop a game, the type of expectations of players, the way to distribute games, etc. It's so different now. How do you navigate this today? Like, do you feel like there are still lessons from the past that we can still apply today, or is this just like another world?
Yeah, well, yeah, that was another part of the previous question. Good point. Back then, it was very hard to make a game. Like there was no documentation. There's nobody to help you. You're just kind of like going through. I learned how to code assembly language on the Apple II by reading just the processor manual, not the one especially for the Apple II. I just read this bad book, Programming the 6502 by Rodney Zacks, and I was reading a paragraph of like, what is he even talking about? Like it's not well articulated or something, and of course it's just like a nerdy chip manual, of course, but it was very hard, and you're doing like manual assembly of bytes of information to make a shape or something, and writing it out on graph paper. So it was like a lot of work. It's sort of like photography. It was a lot of work. Now there's infinite amounts of references and everything to do, but there's also a million games because it's easier to make. So now it's like difficult just to get noticed. They're just like, oh, I came out with my new platform. It's like, well, I hope that is a very interesting mechanic because you're just going to be in the sea of, of games that just, will make $0 to $100. It's a tough thing. And then on the other end, there, everything has to look AAA, and
Oh yeah.
so you have this juggernaut of 200 people. And like it's like an Avengers movie. Like we have to do something safe. It has to follow our game formula, or this is gonna be a Titanic. So we can't do something like, hey, this would just be cool if we tried that. That's the game I want to. It doesn't exist, and I want to try that. That's hard to do. So you have the indies where you get outliers that kind of pop up above the fray. Like I Love Minute and things like that. Short hike or whatever, but then you have it like until Helldivers 2, I didn't like there weren't a lot of like AA games that were just trying something. They spent a lot of time making a couple of AAA things in a AA game. Like the intro cinematic just really sets the tones. Like, yes, I get it. I'm in. And then they just did something. The design is efficient around delivering something that can just be procedurally interesting, and sort of hand managed, like hand DM'd after the fact, which is great. But yeah, we're in like where do we go from here? Like there's all this juggernauts with money that are have to play it safe, and then there's all these indies that would love to get attention, but they're just drowning in a sea of easy to make games. And then it's sort of like Matt Damon was talking about what happened to the studio model. It's like all these studios, they make it sort of those cool middle of the road films, and they wouldn't make ton in theater, but then a lot of people would run them on DVD. So there's like those middle, kind of cool dramas, Kramer versus Kramer or something, like I don't know if that's particular, but or an indie film like Bottle Rocket or something, like that come out and it's just like, wow, that was a kind of cool film, or it's like there's a little period drama or something like, and it's hard to get those made now because there's no DVD rental after the fact. It's basically it's in the theater, you get your money, and then it's on streaming where they get nothing. So like it just wiped the center of the market out. So they're struggling with the same thing. It's like they're just like the economics of maximum profit are kind of ruining a lot of things, and it's kind of becoming this everything or nothing kind of game, which is difficult. And so I hope just generally companies look at game designs where there can be a middle road that doesn't have to be a Kickstarter or something that you hope succeeds, and that could just like, try some stuff and see which one kind of takes off. That was what was cool. They like movie studios would make their tent pole, and then that would support, the making of essentially art that is different, and I just hope that we can find a way to be there in the land of the safe mega hits and struggling indies.
Yeah, it's a different. I mean, I look at it for myself in a sense of we were in a way lucky to be part of, and I was the later generation. Like I came late to that renaissance, but in a way, I was still in the renaissance of games where. At least as a gamer, I remember when on the ZX81 Sinclair, or later on Spectrum, just seeing a dot on a 40 by 60-ish kind of resolution moving was impressive, and we were excited about anything. And there was also genres, now we do adventure game like point and click thing, or this type of game, or RPGs or whatever, and little by little, there's been this crazy acceleration where everybody's jaded and we see so much stuff. And now it's just not the same cursor in the world. It's just, that world has changed, and there's nothing we can do about that, of course. But it's a different kind of challenge now for sure. But I do, feel lucky. I feel lucky that I've been there, and I think there's probably some other industries that have gone through that, like movies have gone through that, the music has gone through that. If you were lucky to be a musician in the 60s or 70s, it was probably, you were like, 80s even, like up until the 90s, you were still able to do something and like become big. And now it's like, well, everything has been done. And I feel like there's a lot of things like that. I don't, maybe VR is the new renaissance in a way, and we'll have some more, but it's true that things are so fast. Like the way people consume things, Game Pass, like here is an avalanche of games, Spotify or whatever, it's difficult to, it's hard to see the world in the same way. So I think it's more about the surface changes now. It's like everything has been pretty much, physics exists. Like it was impressive to see a character with hair, like even 20 years ago. Now we don't care. So what do you impress people with? I guess it's more like high level ideas and execution. But yeah, sometimes like there's an indie that comes out and surprises us with something cool. It's very, very different ecosystem for sure.
Yeah, it's difficult. Like you're mentioning Chaplin, like he was at the start of, or near the start of, a whole medium. So like there's a lot of invention to make. But if we do go back and like study his work, there's some stuff like there's just lessons about how to do things, how to cheat in a way. So like he used a very like he there's one thing where he was skating, I know he was skating backboard on a roller skates or something, and he almost fell off. And you could see he was going to fall 2 floors, but that's just a matte painting and a clever set in 2 pieces. And so like there's those kind of things you do, and like you can do those things in movies, you can do those things in games. There's a you can create a false sense of reality. Like Doom we did was a 2.5D. Like what's the cheat? Like that's what Carmen's brilliance there is like. Hey, you could like not take on the full 3D experience, but still can like deliver a 3D experience that seems pretty awesome. And so those kinds of lessons there, and the way you communicate lessons are there. But yeah, like if someone made that today, that's not going to fly, but there's still like a craftsperson kind of thought process that is still instructive, and a sense of setups and delivery can be done. So like I think I think something that is lacking in a lot of devs is like really getting deeply to know the history of games, because like if you played like all the classics, you'd sort of have a better breadth. It's like being a writer and not reading or something, like you need to play not just your current games but the sort of the classics, so you can just learn what a minimalist design is. Because like if you're playing like Tetris, there's no place to hide. Like that is pure game down to the bone. And so now that has to be perfect. And so just small change to that really changed the whole experience. So like you can hide if you make this sprawling, 80-hour game, there can be like some dodgy things or whatever, and like and Anachronox there's some low points or whatever. But still it's understanding that if you boil the core of your game down to just the bare necessities, is that purely fun and perfect? And those are the kind of lessons you can learn it in any medium or from all mediums, just like anywhere. I just read Rick Rubin's book, Creative Act, Way of Being, and that really resonated with me, because he talks about sort of getting your few ideas and then seeing which one kind of has promise, and then letting yourself have timeless play with it. And I think that's really important, because people will rush in like, okay, we have to have the full thing designed or something like that. No, just like get the nugget and it's fun. Now, seek funding, or now, like go into full production before like this big, juggernaut goes around this thing. The core of it needs to be pure and fun and amazing, and have everyone believe on it, and also like justify its own existence. It can be purely fun, but if it's not different than any other thing that's come before, like, why are you making this? It just looks slightly different, like there should be some core coolness, some twist that you're adding to the conversation about fun and experience.
Yeah, and it's funny because I mean, of course, those are thoughts I've had often. I never really tried to put them in an equation, because if you really think about it, there are some games that really don't need to be pretty or have a good sound, like Tetris. You can make it as pretty as you want with all the effects and whatever, and it won't be better. But I wouldn't say that for Doom, for example, right? Doom was a fantastic game, obviously, we all know that. But the fact that it was pretty probably participated as well to the experience, because it's an engaging world. It's a world that you want to visit. So then if it's ugly, it does, we can't say in this case that just pure gameplay is enough, right? There are some experiences where you really need everything, the sound, the audio, to really participate.
Absolutely. People would have been blown away by like, wow, this is a great theater. I wish it would look prettier or something like that. But they would have been blown away by the experience. But crafting the whole, I mean, to my point was, it's just that if Doom was ugly, the core of it's still fun. So once you pretty it up with Adrian's lovely art and Kevin's art and so on, then it's the whole experience, and it's got cool music, and it's got it perfected its raw sense of style and action. It's scary, dark, and fast, and that.
Oh yeah.
Like games hadn't gone full dark, and that the first time we made a level and it went full dark in a level, it was like I kind of gasped, because it was like, holy crap. It's like, I don't have information here I'm supposed to be given. You turn on, oh, there's a light, okay. And so if just making it you're scared of it, then something has gone right. That was pretty cool. But but still, like, if you boil down a core experience, and it's sure you want everything else to be full quality, but if the core has to, you want to make sure you're not hiding a bad game with pretty dressings.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's way too many of those. Unfortunately, as a gamer, I became so jaded about that. I have a question about AI because we briefly brushed over the topic, but so AI is obviously super interesting, scary for some ways because we don't want it to do the things we want to do, but
Actors are on the strike right now.
yeah. But that's a problem. Like like I can find examples of things that I would totally want AI to do because that's not in my area. I would love lawyers to be on AI. I bet lawyers hate me for saying that. So I got the same question for you, Tom. What would be, because we all like, we don't want to. We want, of course, we don't want anybody to lose their job, but at the same time, it's an amazing tool. So, what are the things that you think you would like AI to do for you in games, and what are the things you would hate AI to do for you in games?
Well, to me, I would prefer that AI take like every single bit of grunt work that it could out of the process. So like you can't write buggy code, nothing can ever be checked in wrong. Like the art is always, this the old school is not accurate, but it's always in the right palette, or like everything is obeying the color language of this current level or something in the color story, and that kind of thing. Like just take away the drudgery and let the creators just be free to create, and that would be the first thing to take on. But again, it's like I'm not a Luddite. It's like I want to use the best tool I can. It's not like I'm sitting there typing a notepad, like I use compilers when I want to go and so on. So that doesn't make any sense as far as being that crazy about it. So it's like I use ChatGPT all the time, just as like to spur cool ideas or to do something, maybe take a first pass on something. And I think the most dangerous thing is going to take away are the jobs that are just kind of grunt work, because like a lot of people are just doing sort of like the data is like this and it needs to be like this, and I can do that as a job, and those are just, may just go away. Yeah, but then again, I mean, I'm also like, as long as AI doesn't like steal creative works, or if it gives credit to creative works, it's fine to use a tool. It's like, as long as it's not like this wholesale like a plagiarism machine, that's
AI
fine. Like,
abuse. Yeah.
yeah, just like, because I mean, I do photography, and I like, it's amazing to like, oh, I just wish the sky was filled 60% more image up here. It's like, okay, boop, it's like it takes no time and it can do perfectly, or just erase this person, boop, like that's fantastic. Like that would take me, like 30 minutes to do perfectly, and so
yeah, and in this case, we can say erasing a person from a picture. That, I mean, there might be someone who thinks it's a really cool job for them, and so that's where there's a line, right? It's the same about from a strictly functional, logical, practical aspect. I can tell you, I mean, you know that voiceover in games are an absolute pain in the ass. They come late. They come at the end. If you cannot, once you have your voiceover, you cannot make any more changes. Or you get to call the actors again in the booth, and that costs a fortune, and it's annoying, and they're not available that day, etc. So from a purely practical standpoint, if voiceover was just as good as an actor, it would be very tempting to use AI. But then everybody would scream at me, and actors would lose jobs, right? So how do we deal with that dilemma? Because it's a true dilemma.
Yeah, I think it's probably become de rigueur to just pay actors for their voice.
Yeah.
And do the initial session. And if you make changes, they'll just be a part of the contract that they get 100% or 80% of the cost, because it's a dynamic thing that changes all the time, and it's not as predictable as movies. It's not like you just come back and do ADR or something. It's like it's like we're shipping tomorrow and we had to cut this feature and they mention it everywhere in the game. It's just like if that could just be a button and save 100 people's jobs because it has to be changed. That's not, as long as creatives get their dough. I don't think it's horrible to like sign contracts like that and just say, okay, like I will be, I will. It's sort of like a limited use correction, AI voice AI correction, because like, of course, actors want to author their performance and to do and AI maybe not be up to that snuff yet. But if it's just a bark or something, or just like a mission briefing or something like that, that's not like, like, oh, this is my Oscar-worthy performance or BAFTA-worthy performance or anything. So I think that's fine. It's just, as long as creatives are not eliminated from the creative process, the realities of actually getting a game done necessitate those kind of things, and like often it may just be, well, I guess we just don't play a voice line here, or we have someone else kind of do it over a radio so you can't hear it's the wrong person or something like that. It's like there's a lot of creative ways to go around it, but they're worse than actually just like getting this thing done. So I think there's a middle ground where that can be done. Also, it's just like, at a certain point, with budgets going so high, can we like just have like sort of like all the NPCs around the game, can those just be like, here, we'll license your voice, for 50%, and just for, and if it's in a main cast role, then of course, we pay full for that. But if we're just, you can license your voice to just be a little, somebody on the side of the road mumbling about their barrel or something like that, and we don't have to like go through all that process and bother you, or something, and it would just like lower budgets so we can have those double A's again, so we can continue to exist in this world where it's like you have to, be gigantic to publish something.
I won't scream at you, Raph, because of that. Because I'm thinking the same thing, actually. Voice acting, collaborating with AI, that's really convenient. And we're actually researching this area because, dialogue lines is something that may change multiple times during the period of development. And sometimes you just can't afford to call that actor again and again and again, come to my studio and do it again.
But I mean, conversely, it's just like, I don't want to be in a company like the other end of the spectrum where it's just like, two devs in a room and the rest of it's, AI generated. It's like, to me, then there's no soul in the product. But if you're like, say, there's a gigantic MMO across, 20 time epochs, and something like that, and then you have to generate, 1 million characters. Like say if No Man's Sky had real NPCs on all the planets, that's not something you could voice. That's just not reasonable to voice. And the expectation from the player experience is that they would have voices, and if you started with voices. And so like then like the problem has to solve itself, and that solution is like, AI renting AI.
Yeah. So you've mentioned Game Pass before, and we actually started to talk about this with Raph a while ago. There's a point of view that obviously gamers love things like Game Pass. I pay once and I get all those amazing games for free. But there's a certain point of view that it damages gaming studios. Can we elaborate on that a bit, please?
Yeah, I mean, I think like there's a place for, it seems to me like games need the DVD market, like I was talking about. We need a, like, after the first run, that there needs to be a place where they can still thrive and still make money. And they're previously it was just like Steam sales, that's about it. And so now there's like different venues where like I can appreciate a game, like, oh, I got this, free on PlayStation Plus, or it's over on Epic Game Store, or if it's on Game Pass, it's like, okay, I get to, like, I was thinking of checking that out, and somehow I didn't get around to it in the first run, and it's just cool that, I can experience all this, and and people can get a chunk of that, like that. It seems like a win-win if it's done correctly.
Yeah, what's your take on that, Raphael?
Well, I mean, I absolutely agree with Tom. I think in general, having as a back catalog, having an access to all the games that have, that came and made their money or whatever, like there's, an older game, like 6 months, a year, whatever, like, so it's cool. I really like a place where I can access all the games, and I could be on the condition of some sort of a monthly fee or whatever. And even that sounds dangerous, because players then would start gaming that, and they would just wait 6 months before they play any games they want. But more fundamentally, I look at what happened with Spotify. I don't all these companies, they are barely profitable. I don't know if Game Pass is profitable or not. I think a lot of those business models rely on constant. It doesn't rely on fans, it relies on users, which is already ugly for me. And it relies on constant growth, on like having more and more acquisition of users that will pay forever. And that's how they bring those business models into place, because it's, for some reason that's the world is moving that way. But again, Spotify is still barely profitable because it doesn't work eventually. And what it does is that, and I worry about Game Pass doing this, because at first, when they're in the user acquisition phase, they just go, fantastic, all the games on there, and they even pay devs pretty well to be there. But then eventually that won't work. There's a moment where, as a dev, why would you put your game for just a few plays, and then you're being paid by the play or something? It's I worry about that on one hand, like what it's going to do to the business model. I also worry about what it means for the users. In this case, I can't even say players anymore. What it means for them, the people who enjoy games. Like, do they see games as some sort of a commodity, like some sort of I didn't like the intro, it was like, it was too slow for 5 minutes, I just moved on and moved to another one. It means that then this will, the same way Spotify encourages musicians to make hooks within 2 seconds, it's the same thing. It's, you will never have like those long ass intro from Pink Floyd on Spotify. That's never going to fly now. And not that I like those, but what I'm saying is that there's less, we are trying to go for what works instead of art. And I understand that, of course, we'll to some level do that, but business models will influence art to a level that could be negative. That's what I fear with this model.
I mean, that's true. Like, I think Game Pass is fine, and I think that's publishers are just trying things to either get more revenue out of things that already exist, or they're just, honestly trying to survive. Because it's a tough market out there with so many options, right? And I think it's less a problem of, say, a Game Pass or something. I've subscribed to all the whatevers, of course, but I think it's more a problem of just there's so much out. There's just so many choices that people are trying to find ways to sort of like grow or at least survive in the market. And I think like good solutions will naturally bubble out. Now, conversely, though, like if that was the only thing available, like you only had subscriptions, then that is can be a problem, because then like you are, playing to the hook, and you're playing to the, like your Fatui has to that can have no nuance in it. It's like, this is it, boom. Which is sometimes the Fatui, it's not bad that's true of your Fatui, but first time user experience for those listening. But there can be the sort of like having to say me, like the free to play games, really have to jump at it. They can't be, this long intro introducing your universe to this long game. It's just like, you're in battle, like it changes the way you create the start of your experience, and that can limit options. And yes, creativity constraints loves constraints, but it's if you can't do things, then it's, like you end up with everything, doing the same thing, and you end up with the loudness wars that was on CDs. Like, everyone's like bumping the end up and starting clipping their music, but they're louder on the radio, and so you get your Oasis Wonderwall jammed to the top, horrible recording. But yeah, so I mean, like it's sad when the medium can, or the quantity of art can start affecting the art. That's worrisome.
And as you said, I think, like, the industry is trying to survive. They're all trying to find what's the next way to at least not go under, but preferably make money. But the problem I see here is that if the Game Pass thing doesn't work, which we'll see, in the meantime, they will have hurt a lot of people in the process, because those big companies that have so much, they operate on kind of like the infinite money thing for a while. Like, it's investment, so they don't care. Like, they go for it, and then everybody follows. Everybody has to go with this rule because there's no other choice. And then it doesn't work eventually, and then they leave everybody crying, right? That's kind of like the bubble, which has happened post-COVID right now in general in the industry, where these old investors came in, they say great, and then it doesn't work. It doesn't work as well as we thought it would. Pull the money out, and everybody falls, right? So that's always something that, and there's nothing we can do about it, but it's something that I worry, because it might be a long cycle before we get out of this attempt of something that, to me, is not the way the game industry should go. Like, we should not try to make Netflix and Spotify with video games. I very much, as a game designer, very much worry about that direction, which doesn't seem to have an economical future.
I mean, I think publishers, like, I think it's great to have a sort of a suite of games that you can just play, and it's great for people that, on a limited budget, they can predict their spending, and so you can get a larger title if you're on limited budget. And I think those are fine. But yeah, I think if it went to a point where you're not paying very much, like if you were paying way less for some reason so they could get tons more subscribers, that may be worse, because then it's just like, that opens a floodgate of, like, here's all the games and now no one's getting money. And then and yeah, I don't understand the business models of the sort of more just the subscription only publishers that are just like, let's grow the number of people that can access this. It's like free to play, but then there's no, like, large payer monetization anywhere. So it's just like, now, are we just gonna, like, make tiers of models or something? And they have like you can, like, have ultra high quality streaming on whatever, and pay a little bit more, or you get HD streaming, which is actually not worth it because the bandwidth problems, but on video. But yeah, there is a danger of in something like going all the way to Spotify scares me. Yeah, like if there is no like retail product anymore, or if there's no like what happens to indies? Does wipe indies out of the water because like there's so many games and no way to monetize them. So like, but in the presence of a vacuum like that, then a Bandcamp will pop up. You know, like something will pop up that where there's a need and then where there's a want of that kind of service, that somebody will see that gap and go in there and go into the blue ocean and find the people that want the real stuff. And I have faith that eventually things will sort out, unless it goes to some horrible dystopia and we're all in the the metaverse of hell, which in the book was a bad thing, by the way. Anyway,
Yeah, so you were talking about, Raphael, you said about the situation where Spotify, and I mean the whole picture of the circumstances for the creators, for the musicians in this case, it forces people to come up with those hooks in the first 2 seconds and all that. But there's also this thing called TikTok, and a lot of music comes from there. I mean, modern day hits, 1 week hits, and all that comes from TikTok, and many musicians are like mostly, I would not say that, probably we can say that they are forced to to compose meme songs initially from the very start. I want this to be viral. I want this to go through TikTok. This is my model. This is how I will become famous. And this really worries me in terms of music and in terms of games as well, because meme games is something that we actually started to see in the recent times. If you're a gamer who is waiting for a particular game, you can grow tired of it before you even play it. That happened to me with Alan Wake 2. I'm a big fan of Alan Wake 1 and the games by Remedy, Max Payne, and all that. But Alan Wake 2, it was just impossible. Wherever I went, there were gifs from Alan Wake 2. Or same thing happened to me with Baldur's Gate 3. All those bare memes and jokes and all that stuff. Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, no doubt, brilliant games. But this whole, entourage around them, I just didn't want to play them. It felt like I was full of Alan Wake 2 and Baldur's Gate 3.
Is it like hearing a song on the radio?
Absolutely.
Like hearing it 5 million times is like, well, I guess I don't need the album.
Yeah. I've had my bunch of Alan Wake 2. Thank you very much. Yes. But the problem is that after seeing that measure of virality, many publishers will want the same from all the games they get in their inbox.
I would say the huge difference though between music and games. I think one of the reasons why Spotify can get away with what's happening right now is that they, as a musician, you can pull out a song with nothing, with a few thousands of dollars maybe once you get it produced and everything, or even free if you do everything yourself. But in video games, it's not true. So that's why I don't think. I mean, it's comparable at least like from a distance. And then when you look at the detail of it, there's no way. I mean, unless you're making indie games with AI or something, and they cost you 2 days. But there's just no way that this can function on a that's a system where like you paid by how many times your game was played or something. Right now, it's subsidized by betting on the future and wanting to grow the user base. So that's why I'm pretty hopeful that this is not a real system that will really kick in. That's the biggest question at the end of the day. Otherwise, people won't make games. I mean, we all understand the how much it takes to make a game and how many games can be sold, right? Like there's no I mean, of course, if you have a killer in your hands, then there's no limit. But we know like the minimum you need to sell in order to recoup. That's very, very simple math. And so, if your game costs 10 million, 5 million, whatever it is, I'm talking about really like a fairly small game at this point. I'm not talking about AAA games. How do you pay those 5-10 millions? Right? That's really the bottom line of it. If it's like on a Spotify model, it's not going to work. If it's on a Spotify model plus a little bit of advance because, hey, if you're lucky, it's going to do well. It's like, no, thank you.
Yeah, I do understand. Like, I think like if there's not a middle ground, if it just keeps going, if it like gets to a point where there's just not any revenue coming back the other way, then like it's just going to eliminate certain kinds of games. I just wish there was we could all kind of gaming wise get back to sort of AA games and sort of like enjoy just interesting experiences that are varied rather than like, what's the new Overwatch or what's the new X, it's you just get a lot of like, I know how to play this. This is slightly different looking and has one cool weapon that's different, and then like that's not interesting and people are having to chase that because that's how you get eyeballs and profit. And so I just hope for a future where there's, like business models that can sustain development, whatever way they do, and it just, there's a huge mega games, it seems to me are I understand I've played games for hundreds of hours, but at a certain point, it's just like I'm maybe it's being in the industry 37 years. I started playing short little games, and now I'm enjoying finishing games. Like, wow, I wish things were like 4 or 5 hours, didn't cost 100, 200 million to create. It's just your investment wasn't as much, my investment wasn't much. You had a cool, dense experience, and we both had a great time. It's like you can make games and I can play games and finish them, and because everyone's busy now. Everyone, again, it's the attention. That's like I don't have the quantity of attention or time, to just dive into something for hundreds and hundreds of hours anymore. It's just there's just so many things, fire hosing past you. It's difficult to play everything. So I think getting back to somewhat smaller games would kind of like be a better medium for both players and devs if that was supportable.
It's interesting. Yeah, I don't know exactly how the psychology works, because somehow I agree with you, and at the same time, I don't necessarily feel that. So for example, buying, of course, it's a change of topic at this point, but buying, for me, like a Skyrim or Baldur's Gate 3, I don't know if I will finish them. I mean, frankly, I probably will. But I don't need a 200 hours game. But the fact that it's there with, it says 200 hours, I feel like, all right, I'm buying something real.
But do all the games have to be that though? Like, there's, of course, the Baldur's Gate is going to come out like, oh, this is, a fantastic world you created. But there can be, like, one of my favorite games of all time is Journey. That's just, it's not huge. It's novel. It's interesting. It felt like just playing pure game language. And if you understood game language, you just flow through it like butter. And it was just like, I just had a smile on my face, and it was just stunning. It was gorgeous and different and interesting. And I again, it's, outlier and made by, experienced devs and stuff. So but still, like, I'd love to have a world of those, and then occasional Baldur's Gate 3s, like, that are wonderful, stellar games, but the engine that has to be behind those is like, difficult for a lot of studios to drive.
Totally, yeah. My example of my version of that for me is probably Inside. That was a game that
loved
4 or 5 hours, fantastic.
Yeah, Limbo and Inside, like,
oh yes.
When I guess it's not a spoiler anymore. Okay, so when you come in and the spider comes in Limbo, I just jumped out because I had
Oh
the
yeah.
sound. I thought I'm loving the atmospheric quality of the bang it was just like the scariest thing in recent memory. Like, oh my god, I have it. It's in my game shame pile.
You know what? The ones that are a super win to me are the ones that are short but extremely replayable. Now that's the win. And I am unable to make those. I mean, my games can be played 2 or 3 times, but like I'm not talking about Into the Breach level.
Balatro and all those kind of games that are just like clever, replayable and cool and yeah. No, I mean, then again, it's like there are certain tons of designs you can do that are that efficient and replayable and general, but then some people just want to tell an experience, and that's it. But then are we entering an era where like doing essentially your great mini series of a game is not possible, unless it's very safe and giant funding and stuff like that. That's the difficult compromise. Like, can you come up with another universe and tell a efficient story? I mean, commercially, you could just spend 4 years like Stardew Valley, like and
Wikipedia says that Tom Hall tried to crowdfund 2 projects on Kickstarter to no success. Sometime like more than 10 years ago or something like that. Can we talk about this, please? Maybe some advice for beginner devs or.
yeah. Well, one thing is, first one is just make the core of your project before you ask for crowdfunding. Two, spend more time explaining exactly why it's cool, because basically the first crowdfunding was Super Mario Maker. I just came up with that community level thing, blah blah blah. You can retheme your things, and it did this. The actual video did this. The sort of like the angle to change across the screen, like happens in Super Mario Maker. So it was just that. It's like, let's all make that and have a community where we kind of come up with cool game content together. And I was going to do a game in it, sort of like a spiritual successor to Commander Keen, but it just like I don't think I demonstrated or like it wasn't going it was going a little bit, but I don't think I spent as much time on the core, like here's the cool game already, I just need to make the rest of it. And so it was more just like that was kind of rushed, and I think that was just an error on my part. But I'm still here, you can just try stuff. And then the other one, I had made Anachronox, and Brenda had made Wizardry, was it 6 or something like that? Anyways, they both were up for RPG of the Year, and hers won. So we thought like, oh, it'd be great, to combine forces, make this thing. And I just think we didn't. Again, we just thought like, oh, people, they're fans of those games, would like to see something like this appear again. But I don't think we created just the core nugget of like, we're so passionate about it, we made this nugget of it. Let's all do this together. It was more like, hey, would you like this, rather than like showing that initial like passion ourselves. I think so. That's what I would do, is just like, like spend the time to make the thing that you want, so at least you proved it out to yourself a little bit, and then share your idea for the rest of it. That's what I would do.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's really hard in the sea of games and potential things to do the novel thing, and you just really have to convince folks with your passion for it, make it however you can, to that point, like you were talking about, Concerned Dave guy getting supported. It's hard to make art and hard to make creative things. And there's this whole spectrum between this purely commercial art to purely art from your soul, and you're, living in a dingy room painting or whatever. And where that balance lies determines your sanity, probably. It's like, how can you develop things safely with funding or with support, while still making the thing that you think will add to the conversation of gaming and conversation of human experience. That's the tough balance.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Tom, Raphael. I had a great time.
Yeah, it was great.
So you both please have a great day, and see you soon in the next episodes of the House of the Deaf. Bye, gentlemen. Thank you very much.